Good morning or good afternoon to some of you. Thank you for joining our webcast today, Utility Career Advancement for Women. We subtitled this one, For Women, Endless Possibilities, but Men Are Welcome Too. Now, before we get going, I wanted to specifically recognize the 30 some odd folks in Westfield Gas and Electric who are joining us over lunch today. I think that's a great example of how we can all circulate this information and learn from each other. So we're delighted that you have joined us over your lunch hour today. Thank you. Now, I see a number of familiar faces in the audience, but I also see some first-timers as well. So for their benefit, I'd like to talk just a moment about Egan Energy Communications. Simply put, we are a content provider for utilities and solutions providers. We work exclusively in the energy field. We don't know anything about potato chips or computer chips. We've been up for 13 years, and that builds on 20 some odd years of my experience as an energy journalist, market researcher, utility spokesperson, and the like. We have clients across the country, and basically we write anything they need. Sometimes that's an annual report, sometimes it's a trade journal article. You can see some of the other types of materials we have. And if you're really interested, there's our website at the bottom of the page. I invite you to join us. Also, if you are not a subscriber to our blog and you want to receive free monthly content on utility communications and marketing, original content, we'd urge you to sign up for the blog. There's a button that comes up as soon as you go to our website. So why this webcast and what you can expect? Well, we're going to do things a little bit differently after 2 full years of Zoom, Teams, WebEx, GoTo, whatever. We're going to do things differently today. And let me start with the backstory. So Janet, my wife, and I attended a Women in Public Power breakfast last October, and we really enjoyed the conversation there. And we invited about a dozen women who were there who worked in communications and marketing to contribute to a blog that we ran in February of this past February. That blog was really well read, and so it was just a natural to have a web conference after that. So we're going to do things a little bit differently today. I know most of you are used to 60-minute web conferences. We have done 60-minute web conferences, but because of the number of participants and the interest in the topic, we're going to go longer if the questions merit it. There will be no presentation. We're going to have really an open, interactive conversation. We would ask you to share your questions or share your experiences live. Don't wait until after the presentation because, as I said, there is no presentation. I believe all of you are unmuted, and I would ask you to use your mute button accordingly. We wanted to unmute you all so that you could make those contributions as you saw fit. You certainly can send us questions in the chat button. We'll keep an eye on that. And let's see, the webcast will be recorded, and we'll send a link to the attendees as well as all of our subscribers to our blog, EEC Perspectives. So we'll post that on our website. I know a number of people could not join us today in real time. They had conflicting meetings, so they will be able to watch this after the fact. We will have 2 polls that pop up during the event. These are take your temperature type of polls, and I don't know how the 30 people in Massachusetts are going to manage voting on these polls, but I'll leave that up to them. They've gotten us this far. I'm sure they'll be fine. And we would ask you to help us get better by completing the survey at the end of the webcast. And so with that, I'd like to go to our first poll, the threatened polls. The first one has to do with career advancement. And we're going to put up a poll on your screen and ask you to click as many radio buttons as you see fit that represents your experience. So it really has to do with if I could change one thing about my career advancement, it would be this. And we have one option is take greater advantage of skill building. Another one is spend more time earlier in my career to learn an organization's voice. Sheila Corson is the public relations coordinator at Okanogan County PUD in Washington State. I hope I got that right. All right, big thumbs up. Kathleen Mascarenas works as a media relations representative at my alma mater, Salt River Project. And Allison Roush is the public information coordinator for Greer Commission on Public Works, and that's of Public Works, and that's in South Carolina. So since we're having trouble with the polls, we'll just start. I've got a few icebreaker questions that I have prepared, and I will stop talking as soon as other attendees start asking questions. But really, to get the ball rolling, the first time out, I'm going to ask each of the four panelists, and we'll go alphabetically, to tell us just in a minute or two, tell us about your work as a utility communicator or marketer. How did you get there? And what did you find out along the way? So let's start with Heather. Heather?
Hi. Yes, thank you so much, John and Janet, for putting this together and for bringing us all together. Excited for the conversation we're going to have today. So my journey, like I'm sure many of you, I feel like whenever I talk to folks who get into utility work, 9 times out of 10, that's not necessarily what they would have thought of when they were, 8 years old and asked what you want to be when you grow up. But I think we end up staying once we get in. And so I started with a political science degree from the University of Delaware. I got into government work with the Delaware State Senate. I worked for several senators for several years. And then actually, in an attempt to sort of get out of direct politics, I saw an opening for the spokesperson at the Delaware Public Service Commission. So that's where I got introduced to utilities, but it was electric, natural gas, water, telecom, everything like that. And so spent about 2 years there when I had an opportunity presented to me here at the Delaware Municipal Electric Corporation to be a communications specialist. And then over time, I've been here 5 years now, and I am privileged and honored to be their director of government and community relations. So I kind of dabble in the government affairs side as well as the communication side and merge the two loves of my life together. So I enjoy what I do every day and get to kind of hop back and forth between the two. But I'm a little bit of a one-man band for our Joint Action Agency. We're a lean staff, but we're mean. So we get things done. But certainly honored to be here and excited to chat with the other ladies today.
As is so often the case, an army of one, right? Okay, let's go to Sheila. Sheila, tell us about how you got to where you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm actually born and raised Okanogan County over here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. But I did leave the area to get my bachelor's degree in journalism. I went to Portland, Oregon. So going from small town to Portland, keep Portland weird. And I spent a few years there, came back home and actually worked for a local newspaper for 5 years. And during that time, most of that time, actually, I covered the PUD here as a reporter. So at that time, years ago, they were already starting to talk about hiring their first communications person. It took them several more years before they did. And in between that time, I stopped working at the paper and ended up moving into the public relations world and worked for our school district. And at that point, got my accreditation in public relations back in 2017. Which I highly recommend to anybody who might be interested. And then finally, this job posted. And again, it was the first of its kind. I'm the first person to do this. And I knew basically everyone in the interview room because I had interviewed them at some point as a reporter. And thankfully, I was a good reporter and I didn't burn any bridges there and was hired now a little over 3.5 years ago. I never anticipated that I would continue my education as much as I have, but I'm glad that I have because as of about a week and a half ago, I completed my master's degree at Purdue University. So now I'm even cooler than I was before. And I'm going to leave it at that as my career journey.
More letters after your name, right?
Yes. Oh, more letters. I need more letters.
There you go. Excellent. Kathleen, how about you? How'd you get here and what'd you learn along the way?
Yeah, so I want Sheila to tell us more about the accreditation process. I want to know about that because I was like, wait, what? So we'll go back to that later. My name's Kathleen Mascareñas, and my background definitely was like round, circular, loop-de-loop, all kinds of ways to get to Salt River Project, which is the third largest not-for-profit utility in the United States. And I spent most of my, since I was 8 years old, at the age of 8, I remember I wanted to be a television reporter. And the only reason I wanted to be a television reporter was because people made fun of my last name. It was so long and really hard to spell in kindergarten, and it took up the whole board. And so I remember being about 8 years old, and I saw a reporter in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and her name was Susan Machigemba, and it filled the whole screen at the bottom of the TV with rabbit ears, that whole 9 yards. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have my name on screen, and I'll show these people who make fun of my name. And so that's what I wanted to do, put my name on the bottom of that screen. But I later realized that I truly love people. I truly love storytelling. I truly love just the human experience as a whole, and being able to convey that. So it was actually a very natural, good fit, thanks to being teased as a youngster and also seeing that reporter on air and her name on camera. And then after I had kids, you know, I did work in NBC and ABC stations throughout Texas, Kansas, and also here in Phoenix as well. So I had a pretty long career in broadcasting, and then enter kids, and you don't get to see them when you're in broadcasting a whole lot. And so after my second, I thought, you know what, I need to find something that I could actually raise my kids and go to their birthday parties when I schedule them. And so if there's breaking news, I'm at breaking news, not at their birthday parties. So I started freelancing, and then Scott Harrelson, who John used to work with as well at SRP, contacted me and said, hey, we need someone for a year to just, help us pitch these stories. And it was about energy efficiency. I knew his wife she worked at Fox, and, I think it'd be great to help us pitch energy efficiency stories. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And so what started out as a 1 year, contract job has now been 12 years later. So never in my wildest dreams did I expect to be here. But one last funny story, and then I'll move on to the next person, is when I've been blessed to do a lot of very cool things in my broadcast history. But when I told my dad, who was a uranium electrician for the uranium mines in New Mexico, that I was going to work for a power company, you would have thought that, I won the Nobel Peace Prize or something. He was so excited because he was like, you're going to be in my industry. You're going to be like in electricity and power. And he was very excited that his daughter was going to get to work, in the family business, so to speak, very loosely, obviously. And so out of all the things I've accomplished in my career, working in a power utility was my dad's most exciting accomplishment for me. So that was worth its weight in gold, of course.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathleen. And Allison, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got here.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Allison Rauch. I'm the Public Information Coordinator with Greer CPW. How I started my career is I am born and raised in South Carolina, and I got my start in journalism at Winthrop University, and I spent some time in the TV world as a reporter in 2 TV stations. And I always tell folks that TV business is not what you know, but who you know, and just building those relationships there. And so it was a contact of mine that helped me get out of the broadcasting world and into the public relations marketing side of things. And I really knew nothing about Greer CPW, knew nothing about Greer before getting hired, but I am the second person ever to be in this role as the Public Information Coordinator. I'm a 1-person department, and I handle social media, press releases. I'm the spokesperson for the organization. Also handle social media, educational events, networking, that sort of thing. And I think what has been a great tie for me is this business is all about helping people. I mean, you help people with essential services and make sure that they have what they need. And I kind of did that same thing as a reporter, that I was helping people and educating them about a certain topic or getting their questions answered. And so I feel it's really relatable in what I'm doing now, and it's extremely rewarding. I like it because I came in with no background of utility work, and I like it because I hope that if I can understand what the guys out in the field are telling me, that hopefully I can then translate it to our customers so that they hopefully do understand. So that's really a nutshell of how I ended up here. I've been at Greer CPW 5.5 years, and I learned something every single day. We do water, wastewater, electric, natural gas, and we have 2 lakes that serve as our drinking water. So it's constantly a revolving door of the guys and the crews needing me for something, and just a different utility. Super rewarding.
Never a dull moment, though, it sounds like, with all those utilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're going to try to reload the poll that we threatened you with before. This one has to do with career advancement. So we're going to see if we can overcome our technical difficulties and really see if there was one thing you could change about your career advancement, what would that be? And we'll wait for the poll to show up on your window, and please just click one radio button, and then we'll report back on the results. And meanwhile, while we're waiting for that to come up, I will remind the audience, since there's no presentation, we are happy to take your questions when they come to mind. I have a few here prepared for the audience's benefit, but you can send us a question by chat at the bottom middle of your screen. You could also just unmute yourself and announce yourself and just start talking. So it looks like we are not able to overcome our technical difficulties and load the panel poll, unfortunately. But we will launch right into our next question. So Kathleen.
I see it, John. I see it.
Yeah. Oh, you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, terrific. Excellent. It has not shown up on my screen yet. And I'm hopeful that it shows up on the other audience screens as well.
I can see it as well, John.
Okay, terrific.
Yeah.
So excellent. All right, well, please tell us if you could change one thing about your career advancement, what would it be? Or actually, you can check as many as you want, because some may have 3 or 4 of these points.
The poll has ended.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Since I can't see it, I can't report out. So we'll just move right along, and we will try to get those summarized in the wrap-up note that we send with the archived file. So Kathleen, I'd like to start with you, and then we can talk to Heather and Allison about this as well. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you started work as a utility communicator?
Boy, this could be like a 24-hour webinar if we go with what I don't know. There's still so much I don't know. So I hate to act like I know a whole lot when I feel like I'm still learning every day. I think as I'm not sure if Sheila said that or who said that.
What do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish I would have just known more about the utility space. I knew about utilities in terms of, when there was a storm, I went and interviewed Scott Harrelson. When the power went out, that was obviously big news as a reporter whenever there were major outages, those types of things. But what I wish I knew before was and we also do water at SRP. We have water and power, so we have the combination of both. I'm not sure how many folks are in that experience. So there is just so much to learn about each area. just the nuances of all of it. So I wish I would have probably been a better study, and I'm still learning, obviously. And within our media relations group, there's 4 of us on the team, plus we have an administrator. And within the 4 of us, we have our structure organized to where there's a beat system, much like a newsroom beat system. So I have the topics that I cover within my beat system, which tends to be customer choice, energy efficiency, diversity, inclusion. It used to be the Hispanic community specifically because that's obviously very large here in Arizona. I do things with our field crews. I'm kind of like the breaking news reporter. If there's something that goes on it's breaking news, I cover that and run with it. We just had one of our Zanjeros, who was a water master, rescue 2 dogs from a canal, and that was all over the media. We had good positive PR coverage from pitching that story, making him kind of a little local dog hero. But in terms of what I wish I still know more of was just, there are so many federal regulations. There's just so much to the utility space. And I've been doing this now for 12 years, but focused on my areas. And there are other areas that I still, that Patty on my team or Erica or Scott focus on, that I still don't know enough about those areas. And that gives me a bit of anxiety, but I also just have to keep my eye on my ball and move that meter as much as I can. And on a daily basis, I do that. So I have to be thankful for that in terms of what I do know. I don't know if I answered your question, but I sure tried.
Well, Salt River Project, as I know, there's a lot of moving parts, over 1 million customers, big resource team for communications. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Let's go to Heather. Tell the audience what you wish you knew back when you started, what you know now that you wish you knew then.
Yes, probably a couple things, because I agree with Kathleen. I could probably talk about this forever. But when I first got into utilities in the Public Service Commission, and then I heard it the same, because switching over from commission regulated utilities over into public power was also a little bit of a learning curve. But everyone would say, about 2 years in, you'll start to feel a little confident, and 5 years in, you'll really start to think you know what you're talking about. And I wish I had really believed those people, because I was like, no, I'm an educated electric customer. I know what I'm talking about. And I was overwhelmed by the acronyms and the terminology and all of that. And now to be 7 years into the utility industry and feeling like I really have started to hit my stride. Now, obviously, innovation has caused all these new terms and acronyms to come out. So I'm still learning. But I wished I had believed people when they first told me that it really can take a good 4 to 5 years to start to feel more confident in your knowledge. And then I think the other thing that I've definitely learned over time, especially being sort of this one-man band when it comes to communications, is to not spread myself too thin. That I don't like confrontation, so I'm frequently a yes person when I should say no. And I would just say, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that, because I was eager and excited and hungry, but not all of it was something that I could sustain as more and more got put on my plate. So I had to start learning how to say no and the right times to say no and how to prioritize better. And I'm still a work in progress, but I wish I had mastered that skill maybe a little bit sooner in my career.
Well, maybe that's a vote in favor of handing out a laminated sheet of acronyms at the beginning of an employee's journey. Because
yes,
I too
we did
struggle.
a welcome book that has that very thing in it.
And make sure it can be updated.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Westfield, but I want to continue with Allison. Same question. What do you wish you knew then that you know now?
I wish that I would have spent more time with the customer service reps during my onboarding process. Even though my title is a public information coordinator, I am in customer service. And I think that would have helped me understand from start to finish, even the customers coming in and signing up for service. Just having that understanding of what happens behind the scenes, that would have really helped me during my onboarding process. But again, I'm only the second person ever in this role. And during my interview process, the general manager at the time, he said, Allison, you can really make this role what it is that you want to. You can play into your strengths as a former journalist. And so, I mean, my job and my role is constantly evolving, but looking back, I wish that I would have not jumped in so quickly into my role as a coordinator and communicator and spent more time with communications and customer service.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Now, we have a question from the good people at Westfield Gas and Electric, and I'm going to start with Sheila on this one, and any other panelists, please feel free to weigh in. The question is, how do you encourage everyone within the utility to connect with you so that you can share the great stories that are in the utility? So the perennial challenge, right? Particularly for a one-person band, if that's the case. Sheila, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, Kathleen just added something to the chat too, which is a good answer there. And you know, it's one person department. It's also, for me, first person ever in the department. So it's a new department with a new person, made it doubly hard because it is about building trust. And it's also about building awareness. How do you get them to think, oh, I should tell the communications person about this? Like, you know, they might even think, hey, this is a great opportunity. This is a great story. This was an awesome thing that happened today. You know, they're going to go home, tell their families or something, but did they tell the communications person? That's the difficulty. And yes, that building strong relationships with your coworkers, and that means starting off right. And I think that's one thing that I would change a little bit more. I started off okay, but I should have continued to always do that. And that's actually my goals this year, is to purposefully, intentionally check in with a lot of the different people and all the different departments at least once a month and say, hey, how are you doing? What can I help you with? Is there something you keep hearing from the public that I need to help? You know, is something interesting going on? Is there a project that I can highlight? You know, and just purposefully, intentionally always going up and checking in with people and offering to help, offering to share a story, because a lot of the time they're not just going to come to you. And until you've built that relationship and that back and forth, they might not start thinking about you, but it's got to be intentional. You got to keep getting out there and talking to them.
Right, basic blocking and tackling, right? Show the flag, go to staff meetings, introduce yourself. Now, Kathleen, I know you have something to say about this as well. How do you solicit those stories? What do you do to elicit those stories? You talked about the beat system. Could you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, this among all things at SRP is my total jam, as they say. I love finding stories that are, you know, yes, I have to do the rebate stories, media advisories on all the different ways to say, like, all that stuff. That to me is just painful, and I have to do it. Whoever, if my bosses are listening, sorry, but that's true. But for me, getting to do stories, I'm going to put one in the chat right now about, you know, the dog rescue story that we mentioned earlier. And field crews notoriously, I know at SRP anyway, they're like, no, we don't want to do that. We hate the media. No way. We're not going to do it. So as Sheila said, I think it'd be a good idea to even put it on your calendars, you know, like once every month, check in, you know, with certain people, shoot them an email. Hey, is there anything cool going on in your group? Placing that on your calendar. I thankfully over the 12 years have developed strong enough relationships with the field crew supervisors and even the crews through media training, and also just when I go out in person on stories, I really, you know, just remind them, hey, you know what, we want to feature you guys. It's important that, you know, when negative things happen in the community, like outages, that they see SRP as a human, as a human entity, and that humanity is our people. So when they're upset by outages for, you know, 6-8 hours, whatever the time is, they know that there's a hardworking lineman behind that trying to, you know, put the power on. And so the more we feature you guys, the more we do that, the more patience and awareness it creates in our community when bad things happen, right? It's all about that goodwill that you're paying forward. And so when I explain that, they're like, all right, yeah. And a big piece of it too is media training. So we have organized media training, and we had to go virtual, obviously, during the pandemic. And so we have a very organized class, but then also anytime before an interview happens, because you can't do it obviously for everyone, but my goal when I arrived at SRP was to have an army, a legion of people who are prepared to go on camera and who are comfortable to talk to a reporter. So the more I can build that army and legion of SRP employees who do that, the better off we are as a company. And so even if I have only 10 minutes before a reporter gets there, I'm doing a impromptu media training with the person I'm talking to. I let them know how, where to look on the camera, give them, I mean, it's like a condensed media training, and that's before any interview. And what that does is it gives them confidence, right? It gives them, like the ability, and I talk to them in TV terms or print terms, and I explain what that means. And I really find that with our field crew specifically, it helps. And as much resistance as I get sometimes for doing interviews, they always come to me on the side and they say, hey, can I get a copy of that from my mom or my family? Or, I'm getting a lot of head nods. So they do secretly like it, obviously. But I think just taking any opportunity to promote and maybe to demystify or make media less scary is what we have to do with our more resistant, I say field crews because I think they're the best stories as a whole. So yeah, that's kind of my answer.
An insider tip, bringing donuts to the 5 a.m. tailboard meetings, big win. That's right.
I haven't tried that one.
There you go. You just find a 24-hour donut shop and bring them a dozen of their finest. We're going to go to a second poll now before we go to the next questions. And this poll has to do with mentoring, which is something that's come up a lot in our conversation and prepping for this, but also just as in general. It's been so hard during the pandemic to really, in some ways, get a better sense of your network and your advocates and how to build both. So we're going to put up the second poll on mentoring, and it's up now. I can't see it. That means I can't summarize it, but it's up. Trust me. So please tell us about your experience as a mentor. All right, we got it. Tell us about your experience as a mentor. I've been told that it can mean as much to the mentor as the mentee.
We can, I'm going to close the poll now.
Okay. And I would point people to the chat box where Kathleen has posted a couple of clips as well, which would be worth considering. So let's see.
Looks
So
like
oh, sorry, go ahead. You're going to tell the results.
Yeah, it looks like close to half currently have a mentor or don't have a mentor. So it's kind of all over the board there, I would say.
Well, the good news is for those of you that are interested in finding a mentor, we've got some options. So if we can go back to the slide deck, all four of the speakers today, when we were prepping for this, said they would be happy to serve as a mentor. So if you are in need of a mentor, I would encourage you to screenshot this slide, first of all, or write really fast. And I think the rules of mentoring are pretty relaxed in terms of you figure out with your mentor what you want it to be, how it works. Is it a phone conversation? Is it a face-to-face if you have that chance? So I would leave that up to everyone to pick a mentor if you're interested. And we've got everyone's email and phone number there. And we certainly would be delighted to connect anyone who is in search of a mentor with anyone who wants to be a mentor. So I'll let you continue to write. And now I'm going to go to Allison here in a moment after folks finishing their writing. Allison, we're going to talk about building your personal brand. How do you establish credibility within your utility, particularly since you were only the second person ever to hold this job?
Thanks. I'm so glad that I get to answer this question because I was wanting to add a little bit of a point onto the question in the chat about how do you connect with coworkers to share their stories, and that kind of works into how you build the brand. So for me, it did not come naturally because I think the guys out in the field were like, who is this girl? What is she doing? Why does she show up to the job site? But I think a few years into it, they finally saw the value that I do bring to the table and that I could be a middle person to help divert questions that they might get out in the field, because I provide it by placing a phone call to these customers if it's related to a boil water advisory or a planned power outage. So I'd say just being present, being consistent, and just being available to your coworkers helps build that brand that you are reliable and you're consistent in what you're trying to convey as an organization as a whole.
So it's not one huge thing that you're going to do to universally establish your credibility. It's something you earn every day, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Just being present, asking, I think for me, showing an interest, and that's not fake by any means, just showing an interest in what the guys are doing and asking questions. You just develop a friendship and a relationship with them because they want to tell you what it is that they do, and I want to learn. So I think that just becomes a natural relationship and a natural friendship that builds over time, so that when you need them for something or you want to share something positive, like for example, I do like what Kathleen said about building that perception of humanitizing somebody, so that our guys last week, they rescued a macaw out of a tree. And that was one of my most liked posts. It wasn't even utility related other than he helped a bird out of the tree. But again, you know, it shows that we care. We're not just there to take your money every month. And it gives them the perception that we're here to help.
Exactly. And as Kathleen has just posted in chat, people love animal stories. And I bet that's probably one of your most clicked social media posts in a year. So it doesn't have to be about poles and wires. It can be about making life better or saving pets. You are very big in your community. So, and you have in many cases a blank slate on which to play. So I'm going to go to Sheila now, and then follow with maybe Heather and or Kathleen. What skills do you think have really helped you in your job?
Yeah, well, when I graduated with my bachelor's in 2006, I had a MySpace, for one thing. You know, that's one of the interesting things about being a communications professional is how much things change. So when I went to school with my undergrad, there was no class on social media. You know, it wasn't even mentioned, right? So I've known since a couple of years after I got my bachelor's degree that it wasn't going to be enough, the classes I took then. You know, I moved from the dark room to digital while I was at school, you know, and everything has evolved so much since then. I think the most important thing is not necessarily that you have to learn all of the things, but you should be open to learning anything. And as soon as we say, well, gosh, I didn't learn that, I don't know how to do that, I don't think I could learn, then you've really sold yourself short. So try different things. And maybe it's not going to be your best thing, but maybe it actually is something that you're going to enjoy. So since college, I've learned all kinds of things about additional graphic design, social media, and video. Video is a big one. I never thought I was going to ever get into video. That was not something on my list, but it's actually something I really enjoy doing, and getting lots of little tools, whether I'm using my smartphone or a digital camera of some sort, has been great. I think it's really important just to stay open to things and try things and see what's out there, and communicate with other professionals who maybe you know are good at the thing you might like to learn, and see what they use, see how they learned it. and get some tips there, because I mean, in this career, we're always learning and always adding more skills. And I would say if I had to pick a couple that will be most helpful, try graphic design, Canva. Yes, Kathleen. I live in Canva a lot of time, but also video. There's a lot of great video programs out there, some of them free, some of them very affordable. My sister just did it. She has her degree in English and intercultural studies, and she just created her first video. So go after it. Just be open to it and try it out.
Words to live by. Absolutely true. Heather, did you want to add anything? What
Yes.
skills have really helped you turbocharge your career?
I want to piggyback a little bit off of what Allison said, and I think several of us have, mentioned more of a soft skill, but is how to ask questions, how to ask the right questions, how to engage people, to show your interest, not to fake your interest, but to show your interest and to get them talking and to get them sharing, because that's where you find out, oh, they're planning on this big project 2 weeks from now, and I'm just finding out about it. Maybe there's a ribbon cutting we should be doing, or I've really learned how to strategically connect the dots throughout our organization, because many times we get so focused on what we do that we forget how it connects to another department. And so I've sort of taken it as my own little personal mission to help our different departments and the different, arms and legs of the organization to all connect to the central body of what we're trying to do in the strategic mission and priorities. Because so many times it's like, it could have, it had great intentions, but we could have brought it one step further if we just connected this other dot. So I try really hard now to kind of get myself into the weeds on a lot of things as much as I can, and people will let me, so that I can try and connect different departments that I think might be able to actually help one another in a way maybe they didn't see. I agree with Canva, social media, graphic design. All of that was not something that I came in with any level of, diploma worthy education, but YouTube became a great way for me to learn and pick up quickly. And then sometimes just tinkering around with things, going to APPA conferences and talking with other communicators, or webcasts like this one, John, where you hear other ideas from people, have really helped me kind of dip my toes in those waters. But then I also decided that if something was really of interest to me, like back when I worked at Legislative Hall, every 10 years when the census comes out, you have to do redistricting. And I was just an intern at the time that we had one a while back. And I was like, man, I'm really interested in this though. And I was like, guys, I'll go to the class that learns how to draw the lines. You use the software and all this stuff, and everyone was grumbling about it. I'm like, this is my jam. I'm excited about this. And so then I became the person who drew the lines for our caucus, and the senators would come to me and say, hey, I'd really like my district to look like this. And so you just sometimes by volunteering for something that you don't know a lot about, but you're willing to dive into, like the infrastructure grant funding that's out right now from the federal government, that is a big behemoth to try to deal with. And I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on it by any means, but I said, hey, I'm willing to be our contact person. I'm willing to be the one who takes all the information that's being thrown at us from different organizations and put it into one portal that our members can go to say, hey, this is the latest on and greatest on what it is. Here's contacts you can have. Here's people who can help write you grants. Here's the grants that are out there. This is kind of the timeline. And that's not really, a direct job duty of mine, but I took the interest and I made it sort of that I was the expert on that. And so I'm able to play a bigger and bigger role and learn a lot more about something because it became my job duty because I volunteered for it.
So having a good sense of curiosity and staying alert for opportunities to pick up new skills, and then basically being willing to pivot as needed. So all those are good stuff. Let's. I wanted to talk a little bit about, or ask the panelists to talk about the importance of having a professional network. And as was referenced, this conversation, the APPA conferences, any conferences, the importance of a professional network, including LinkedIn, and how do you build it and how do you maintain it? And why don't we start with Sheila?
Well, yes. I can't stress enough the importance of a network. We talk a lot about being one-person departments or being by ourselves here, but we're really only by ourselves if we choose to be by ourselves in the greater sense of that term. There's a lot of different ways and locations to connect with people. So obviously, I'm going to put in a plug for American Public Power Association and your regional group. Mine is Northwest Public Power Association, and my state group, Washington PUD Association. They all have incredible people involved who are going to help you and connect you with other people as well. I find my super connectors, that's what I'm always looking for when I go to conferences, the people who already seem to know everybody, find those people. But then I'm also part of a professional network, the Public Relations Society of America. PRSA is just a great place to be, to network, to get professional development, all of those sorts of things. But then don't sell out your local connections either. There's going to be people in your utility who happen to have skills like editing or graphic design or things like that, or a background, and they'd shifted careers, but maybe they still have a network that or skills or experience that you can work with. And then I also here locally connected with other communications professionals, not in my industry, but even in the wee little Okanagan County, we've got 40,000 people, over 3 million acres. We have some communicators here, and we hate to feel alone. So I connected them, and we meet about once a month, and we talk about what works and what doesn't work, and we look at each other's projects and all that kind of stuff. And then LinkedIn was another thing mentioned. I've been kind of building my presence there. It's a great place for you to strategically follow the people, the agencies, the companies that maybe are already where you want to be someday. And Kathleen, I've been bad on LinkedIn for years, but this last year I really got my stuff together and I've been doing better. I'm not quite there yet. But I'm getting there, and it's just all these different pieces, all these different pieces work together, and I love how they overlap sometimes too. So just take the opportunities as they come, and advocate for yourself to be able to go to some of those networking conference meetings, because those can change everything for you and really give you some amazing ideas and connections.
They really can. I would always be reminded that when going to a conference or even having a networking event, no one knows everything. Everyone knows something, and your job is to find it. Does anyone else want to ask or weigh in on that question about building a network and maintaining it?
Maybe just a thought. I don't know if any of the other communicators or folks that are on this call have company LinkedIns. That was actually something that I created for the first time last year. So Greer CPW has a LinkedIn, and I'm not really sure what I'm using it for, but it's just another way for me to positively promote what it is that we're doing, and reach a different group of people. But I'd say I try to then share it on my personal page of LinkedIn. And that just continues to help me connect with more people in the utility industry.
Okay, excellent. And we've got another great question from Westfield. And their point is, and I'll open this to whomever wants to know, it kind of gets back to the mechanics of how do we do a beat system. And for those who have not been a reporter, whether in print or broadcast, it can seem mysterious. So the question from Westfield Gas and Electric is, we are fortunate to have CSRs, field crews, operations supervisors, even general managers in the room. Outstanding. Another gold star for you guys. How can they utilize marketing communications to support and build the brand? Who wants to take a swing at that? I think we've all got something to say, but who wants to go first? Kathleen?
First of all, this is phenomenal. I love the fact that your company is invested across the board. That is a major win as a whole. So I think you guys should all do the wave or something, give yourself a round of applause, because that is phenomenal. And to the field crews, to the supervisors, to the GM in the room, I would say in communications, we cannot be islands within ourselves. Like, we need you. We need you guys to give us good stories. We need you guys to feed us good stories. We need you guys to tell us if, maybe there's a better way to communicate something, because we're trying to, process, the technical aspect of things and then make it relatable to people at home. And I always say that to all of my field crews and anyone that I'm doing media training with. I say, when you're speaking, always imagine, your grandmother, your aunt, your uncle at home sitting on their couch. And that's how you need to speak. So obviously no acronyms, anything that might be confusing to your grandmother or your aunt or uncle, you have to speak in those terms to communicate. So I would say, the biggest thing is, I think people tend to think, okay, in communications, they know it all in terms of they have the information. No, we really need your support to be a strong, cohesive team and get that important information out there.
Yeah, before we go to the other speakers, I just do want to share something on this. And this goes back to my days as a PR person at Salt River Project. So we're really going down the memory hole here. But one of the media reps had assigned the beat of environmental services. And it turns out that environmental services is the group that was responsible for a really cool innovation. Salt River Project, as Kathleen said, has an open air canal water delivery system throughout the whole Metro Phoenix area. Well, when it's summer in Phoenix, when it's about 185 degrees, that leads to a lot of moss and weed growth in these open air canals. Rather than throwing in a bunch of chemicals into the canals, which will only have to be removed later by the downstream cities, Salt River Project decided to go get a bunch of, and I mean thousands of weed-eating fish called white amers. And these guys eat like their weight, every fish eats their weight in weeds every day. So they're voracious weed-eating fish. When we found out about it, we talked to environmental services and we said, hey, is this new? First thing you always want to know is this new? He said, no, we've been doing it for 20 years. And I thought, okay, well, we've just found it, so it's new to us. And we sold that story for 5 years. I mean, it's such a visual story. It's an 18-wheel tractor trailer, rolls up on the banks of a canal, pulls out a chute and shoots like 100 5-pound or 10-pound fish into the canal. And it's a great video story. It's still being told, Kathleen says. You see, that just goes to show you a great story can be retold endlessly. But before last thought to, so that's how the beat system uncovers stories that create value. Because now people that saw that story, and it's gotten to be so you can't ignore it after 20 years, they're thinking better about the utility. And so certainly anyone in the utility should feel free to pick up the phone and call the communications people and say, I don't know if you know about this, but here's something cool going on in our neighborhood. And so I'm going to open this up to any other speaker who wants to address sort of mechanically, how does this whole beat system work, and how do we make sure the really good stories find their way into communication so you can do your magic? Who wants to take a lead?
I can jump in on that.
Oh, so, Kathleen, good.
Oh,
good.
Did I step on someone's toes?
No, I think you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Whoever wants to go first, I'm happy to take second. So in the chat, I saved a picture. I put a tweet of a picture that I got on Saturday and Sunday from our guys. Our Light Up Navajo cruise. I know that Heather said she has some folks going. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Light Up Navajo, but is everyone, yes, getting some nods? Okay. So basically SRP is one of a collective of utilities from across the US that are providing electricity to families on the Navajo Nation. There are still 14,000 people to date that live without electricity or running water. So, I mean, they're living in third world countries just up the road from us, literally. So it's a beautiful project. This particular batch of guys have been completely media adverse. They do not want to go on camera. I have only 2 of them that are willing to do it. So that's been a constant struggle, right? But that's okay. I have at least two. So I've been, getting Mark have been helping me a ton, and the rest want no part of it. And that's okay. We can still tell the story with two of them. But they have been sending me pictures. And again, it just goes back to those relationships. So before they left, I went and, before their departure, I went and met each of them before they left, before they rode out, and took a picture of them as a group, let them know who I was, how I'd be bugging them through the course of the next 4 weeks. And so I'm just so thankful to have that, because it's about a 3-4 hour ride up north to get there. So I can't be there in person. So we've been able to tell that story through either stringer video or through pictures provided by our line workers. And I think I completely forgot the question, John, but I just wanted to share that.
No, that's good. It's just mechanics of how this happens. How does the magic happen? Because you can't be everywhere and know everything, even with as big a team as Salt River Project has. So I guess what I wanted to emphasize is that it can be a two-way street. I mean, you can go to staff meetings, right, and plant the flag and say, this is what we do, and this is how you can be part of it. But also people who work in those areas, particularly outdoor linemen or water people or anyone who might have a visual component to what they do, pick up the phone and call you guys. So it's a two-way street. You can't know everything by osmosis, and it looks like we've got a grateful team in Westfield. So I think we've beaten this one to death. I wanted to, we do have our speakers all willing to stay past the top of the hour. If we have questions, I want to encourage people to either unmute and talk to the speakers directly or send them in through chat. I do have one more question I'd like to ask, and then if there are no more, I think we can pronounce this one complete. It's so important for a spokesperson or anyone in communications or marketing to understand their organization's voice. And by that, I mean, some organizations don't like to take credit. Some organizations are like those utility employees. Oh, just doing my job, no big deal, no story here. But others have a more assertive or want a more prominent voice. So I'm going to ask Sheila and Allison if they have any thoughts about how do you learn your organization's voice?
I think it still goes along with a lot of what we've been talking about is being present, as another said before. When you first come on board and even afterwards, things change when you're there. Make sure that you're really having those conversations, sitting down, checking in with managers. Longtime employees is another great one. They've been there to see the changes and see where things are going. Sit down with, if you've got an elected board, sometimes, sit down with each of them. I sat down with each of mine when I first came on, and I check in with them at board meetings as often as I can. Sit down and go on ride-alongs, even job shadow CSRs. I've done a bit of that, really get to know what's going on and continue to do that. And the more you see how things work and how they have worked and what the vision is and all of those sorts of things, you get to know more of that voice. There's always the opportunity to look at, what has been done in the past, what worked, what hasn't, whether it's your own work or the work that came before you. Always be aware of what works, because it's your voice that your utility needs to speak, but there's also a voice of your community and what they need and what they look for and what they really respond to. And so you need to learn how to speak to them as well. So speak on behalf of your utility, but speak to your community as well. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Awesome. And Allison, any thoughts from you on learning your organization's voice and learning to speak in it?
That's an unusual question for me, because I do feel like I am the voice of the organization, and I've been under 2 general managers now. The very first one took a very community-minded, out front focus, and the one that I'm under now is very much a behind the scenes, Allison, you be the voice. of our organization. So I personally take the lead from the managers and the general manager in being that kind of voice, finding what it is that our voice is, but that still won't stop me from communicating what it is that needs to get across or highlighting our guys in a positive light.
Awesome thought. Absolutely. And really with that, since there are no more questions coming in and we're starting to get kudo messages in the chat box, I will say next steps, please take our survey if you don't mind. It won't take more than a minute. Just tell us how we did and how we can do better. And a reminder that we will have a recording of this webcast. We will send a link to all the registrants and those who subscribe to our blog. We will post it on the EEC website. And again, for those first timers who have not been part of this before, welcome. We hope you come back for more. And if you'd like to stay in touch with us, you can subscribe to our blog. We come out once a month, original content on utility marketing and communications. The website is right down there at the bottom of your screen. And if anyone has any questions for me we didn't touch on today, you certainly know where to find me. With that, I will thank our speakers, thank our audience, and thank everyone for sharing and discussing a huge topic today. Until next time.